Welcome, everybody. We have another episode of Against the Grain podcast. I'm so excited to have our guest. We'll introduce her here in a second, but I want to encourage you guys to make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. We have amazing videos. We just dropped a video, Shout to the Lord. It's on YouTube right now, so go ahead and check that out. We have more podcast episodes coming. We have amazing preaching, just dynamic teaching on there as well, too. And like I said, just a bunch of worship as well, too, with all these podcasts. So we really want to get the message out there. We really want people to engage and see these videos. We really believe that we're having impact and people are getting touched as they watch them. So with that, we have our speaker today. We have Cristina in the house. Thank you, Cristina, for coming. But for those that don't know you, go ahead and introduce yourself. Give us a little intro on just who you are.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Manny. I'm so honored to be on the podcast. For those who don't know me, I am born and raised here in SoCal, La Puente. I am 26 years old, and I came to the Lord a little over a year ago at the end of 2020. So prior to that, life was just like a crazy, wild ride. But so it's amazing to say that I've been serving the Lord for over a year now, and my life has drastically changed. But super excited to share with you what I had been through before then. But yeah, it's just a little intro on me.
Yeah, definitely. I think you have an amazing testimony. I know we've talked already before, and we're going to get into it here in a second. But your testimony, I'm really excited for this podcast, because with your testimony, we've heard a lot of people come from the lifestyle and everything, and the stuff that you were involved in. We've heard about it, but we've never known anybody, and we've never known anybody even really close to us. You know, we've heard testimonies. I remember going to a conference and someone got on stage and was sharing on that and stuff, but I didn't know her. She shared a little bit about it, but it's so crazy to have someone, that we're actually like here serving with in ministry and all that. So we're going to get to that. But for those that don't know what we're talking about, is the New Age movement, really. Like I said, I feel like it's really not really talked about a lot, because it's really like this kind of like, I feel like, and I don't know if I'm like kind of speaking out of turn, but I kind of feel like it's almost like kind of like a secretive kind of like it's out there, but it's not really like really mainstream in a sense. And so I believe today, with this episode, we're really going to be exposing, and you and I talked about this, we're not here, for those that are watching, we're not here to to give power to the enemy, like some people will say, or we're not here to, glorify anything, obviously, but we're here to just expose things, and to kind of give the enemy, and kind of give them a heads up, like, hey, like, we're exposing your plans and stuff. Yeah. And I'm believing and I'm praying that people that are going to watch this, maybe there's someone who's out there that's watching this that is involved in it or came from that lifestyle. I just want to expose it and set some people free. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about the New Age, kind of how you got into it, kind of take us from the beginning on how that all started.
Yeah, absolutely. So my testimony, it's just, it's journey, it's life, and it's when you don't have that guidance and just correction, and it's kind of just like a free-for-all, like you're being raised up by the world ultimately, and not to discredit my parents at all. My parents did the best that they absolutely could with what they were given, So the thing is like my mom was a single mom, and I didn't have my father involved at the time. Now my father and I have an amazing relationship, but I didn't have that guidance, and my mom kind of just let me do whatever I wanted. So I was always out and about in the streets, just like doing whatever. And I was truly raised up by the world because I was constantly partying, constantly just getting into a lot of craziness. And, one thing led to another. And in about 2018, prior to 2018, I was constantly partying, constantly drinking, just in bondage. I didn't really know how to live life other than going out and partying and drinking and all that. So I went through a lot in 2018 where it was almost kind of traumatic. I lost my job, I moved out, and my dog that I had for a really long time, I had to put him to sleep. So it was like a total shift in my life, and I was just so lost. And I started going through a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression, and that was really like an open target for just any entities, any dark energies to just come in, because I was looking for fulfillment everywhere besides God, because I didn't know Jesus at the time.
You said you're 18?
This was in 2018. So
in 2018.
Yes, in 2018. So I was 23.
Okay.
And so pretty much just like weird things started happening. I would smoke weed all the time, like all day, every day, and I didn't really have a grip on reality. And Yeah, so pretty much what happened was I had a friend who I grew up with. We were best friends since second grade, and we were still really close up until that age of 23. And I remember her telling me when we were little, but I thought she was kidding because we were kids, but she would tell me that she would see ghosts and she would see demons. And I didn't believe her. I was just like, okay, yeah, sure. But the thing is not knowing that I also saw ghosts when I was a kid. I saw ghosts in my living room all the time, and I didn't understand what was happening. I came forward to my mom, and my mom convinced me that it was just my imagination. But then coming back and now that we're older, and this same friend, she comes forward and she tells me like, hey, I'm really depressed. I don't know what to do anymore because I'm seeing all of these ghosts. I'm seeing all of these demons in my day-to-day life, and I don't know what to do, And so we started talking, and I started sharing experiences with her, and she was like, that's exactly the same thing that I'm going through, but she was still going through it. For me, I convinced myself that it was my imagination, so it kind of shut that down. But she was still going through it, and I didn't really know what to do. So she was just, it just fizzled out, our friendship. Unfortunately, it did fizzle out a little bit. But when she came forward and talked to me about how she would see ghosts and how, she would see demons and all this stuff, it really opened my eyes to the fact that, like, there is a spiritual world, Right. She was like, telling me like, Cristina, it might seem like it's a fantasy, but it's real. Like all of this stuff, it's true, it's real. So it opened my eyes to the possibility like, hey, this might be real. And just like weird things started happening when we would hang out, like supernatural things. So I was kind of just like, okay, this is for real. So little by little, I started like seeking more truth, and a big buzzword in New Age is the universe. We don't necessarily pray to Jesus.
Right.
I never prayed to Jesus when I was in New Age. We prayed to the universe, to God, but we don't specify like what God it is. We just go from like the universe or your spirit guides or to God. So pretty much I understood that something supernatural was happening around me. So I gave into it, and I was like, you know what, whatever this is, it was coming to me, and I started to feel like this sense of like love. Like I didn't know what it was, but I was like, I don't know what it is, but that enemy will always come disguised as an angel of light. Right. So I fed into it, and I gave into it, and I was like, whatever spirit guides, like whatever universe, I give into it, and that was like the beginning of something crazy, because it's like whatever, like ask and it will be given to you, Yeah. So that was like the beginning stages, but pretty much that's how it started, right? So then I was dealing with anxiety and depression, didn't really know how to navigate that. So I had heard a lot of mindful meditation. People sit down, they empty their mind, guided meditations, things like that. Yeah. And I was living in these condos at the time in Diamond Bar, and they had a clubhouse. So they actually brought in a Buddhist to come in and teach a seminar on meditation. So I attended it, and I connected with this woman who was a Buddhist, and she started teaching me all about Buddhism, and she invited me to her temple, and I started going to her temple to pray to, their gods, and you really learned the art of meditation. And she was my first spiritual mentor in the New Age, and I was really open to learning all about Buddhism, because it was so interesting. They believe in the reincarnation cycle. They believe that, you're meant to come into this life until you're able to achieve full Buddhahood, and that's when you achieve it, So that's kind of why Buddhists just really let go of the idea of being a human, because they don't believe that, they just believe that we're just supposed to be these spiritual beings that achieve full Buddhahood, and that's why, how sometimes you see them just like, it's just like they're not human in a sense, and they don't live like a normal life. They're like devoted to like their temple and praying and meditating. Right. So that's how that started. And then from there, I didn't have a mentor to really guide me in the beginning stages of it. So I was just like an open target to whatever came to me, but I was like seeking something more. And so pretty much the whole ideology behind New Age is that, we're spiritual beings living a temporary human experience, and the goal with New Age is to help save Earth and help save humanity, because New Age believes that we're ushering in a new Earth. Wow. They believe that we're meant to create heaven on Earth, and that we're sent here for this time, and that we've contracted to be here on Earth. So they believe that like we're spiritual beings like outside of Earth, right? And then we're like, we volunteer, like, hey, we want to go into Earth. We're going to sign this contract. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, we're going to sign this contract. We're going to go down into Earth, and we're going to save the planet, because, it's like, it's in shambles right now. So they truly believe believe that they're ushering in this new earth with all of, these occult practices and just like all these esoteric practices. And so anyways, I got into Buddhism. I started like just seeking more and more and more. And then I was just still dealing with so much anxiety and depression. Like, it just didn't want to go away. Like, yes, I got into New Age, but like the anxiety and the depression was there. And it got to the point where like I started going to counseling, and all they could really tell me was like, here are these pills. They couldn't really help me with anything other than my counselor did advise me to start doing yoga, which I did, which is like a whole nother story. But all she could really do was like, hey, here are these pills and you have bipolar. So she didn't know like really what else to do. She was like, you can do meditation, you can do yoga, but you have bipolar. They diagnosed me with bipolar disorder.
Wow.
So I didn't really know what to do. I was like broken. I was like, okay, I'm bipolar. And it's like when you don't have that guidance, you believe it and you identify with
Accept it. Yeah.
Absolutely. You accept it and you're just like, well, I accepted the fact that I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to live my life with anxiety. I guess I'm just going to live my life depressed. Like, that's what I contracted to do here on earth. Like, I wanted to, come into this earth and have anxiety and depression because my idea was that I was supposed to help people through that. Like, I was supposed to figure it out and then help other people through that.
Wow.
So she pointed me to yoga. It just so happened there was like an opening for an internship at this startup company near my house in Diamond Bar. And so I called them. I asked them if they were hiring. They were hiring for interns, and I went in for an interview. And the woman, it was owned by 3 women, and one of the owners interviewed me, and she introduced herself, and she told me she was a psychic medium. She was like, I'm a psychic medium, and it was like crystals everywhere. It was crazy. So at that time, that was like, oh my gosh, it was a beautiful studio, but it was full of sorcery and divination and, just super occult practices.
Yeah.
But like you walk into this place and it's like, oh my gosh, it's so magical. Like, this is everything that I dreamed of, everything that I prayed for. And so she's interviewing me and we're talking and we're connecting. And then all of a sudden she just like freezes up and she's like, there's someone here. And I was like, okay. So apparently someone showed up to her.
And it was just you two at the time?
It was just us
in
two.
the room or whatever. Yeah.
So apparently it was like, she didn't give me clarification on who it was, but apparently, in the spiritual, someone showed up to her and was like, I'm here, for her to vouch for her that she's in the right place at the right time. So, not to deny that what she was seeing, that she wasn't seeing anything, because like to fast track a little bit, she ended up becoming my mentor, and she told me that I had the same gift and I was starting to learn mediumship for myself.
Wow.
So I was starting to learn how to become a psychic, how to become a medium, how to channel different entities, just a lot of dark occult practices that I didn't know were dark. I thought this was doing it for God. We truly believe that, well, they truly believe, let me correct myself, they truly believe in the New Age that they're doing it for the glory of God, that they're serving God, that they're helping humanity, and that they're saving humanity, because that's why it's called the New Age deception, right? So I got like super deep into it. But yeah, it's pretty much like a rundown of my testimony in the New Age.
Yeah.
And then we can go into further detail, but that was like everything that I did in the New Age.
That is so crazy. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've heard of things before, but I mean, even just from the very beginning, and like I said, this is really just to kind of expose the enemy and everything. And maybe someone's maybe in that right now or thinking about it, or maybe they have somebody, like you said, advisors or, people in their family maybe. But, like you said, you had some open doors, you were looking for answers. And I feel like, aside from New Age, just like anything in the world, like so many people, I work in LA sometimes and I drive and stuff, and I see people on the streets a lot and homeless and just different things. And no matter what category of people in all of society, everyone's looking for answers. Everyone's looking for answers. Everyone's looking for a help. Everyone's looking to have peace, and it's like, it's crazy that you said, you had these open doors, anxiety, depression. And it's like, okay, you tried weed, okay, and then you went to this advisor, and that's not really working. And then now you're, pills and all this, and it's like, so many people are searching. And, as you were kind of talking, I wanted to kind of highlight some of that is, some of the things that you were sharing was like, it mimics so much of like the Bible. It is so crazy, right? Like, they say the enemy, he perverts truth, or the great deception. It's like, it's a form of truth, but it's not, it's not that full truth. So I want to ask you real quick. So you said that, so New Age, they're sent here to save the earth. And when you said that, I was just like, well, that's exactly what we're here to do. We're spirit beings as Christians, and we're here to, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so crazy how there's that mirror. As you're now in church now, and we'll get to a little bit in your testimony. Obviously, you're in church and everything, but how, like, do you see a lot of those parallels and stuff? Like, when you're hearing truth now in church, do you kind of take yourself back to be like, hey, that's what they taught there? Does that happen to you sometimes? I feel like it would happen to me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then this kind of ties into my testimony of when I first came to Harvest Time was, like everything that we learned in New Age, it's not original. The enemy is going to take God's word and he's going to give it to you, but he's going to twist it just a little bit, So when God opened my eyes and he, woke my spirit to the truth, I was like, wow, I was almost kind of traumatized and I was so hurt because I was like, I've been so deceived. Like, this was my life. New Age was my life. And I poured my heart and my soul into it. And to find out that it's satanic, like, what am I supposed to do now? I felt like my identity, everything had been ripped away from me. Wow. And so I just didn't want to, I was so deceived and so hurt, I didn't want to touch any of that anymore. So when I first came to church and I saw the similarities, but that it was just the truth because, we're serving God, we're serving Jesus, and in the beginning, it was so fresh and the wounds were they were still wide open and I didn't understand it. I thought it was wrong. And that's also why a lot of people who come out of that just really go the religious route. And they're like, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. And that's kind of just not allowing Holy Spirit to move. But it's also not allowing God to heal those wounds because I was like that in the beginning too, where it's like, we can't do any of this. I was doing all of this in New Age. What are you guys doing? Like, that's not the right thing for you guys to do. So it was like this huge thing, and that's actually why I came to Harvest Time and I ran away for a few months because I was like, no, we can't be doing any of that stuff, guys. What are you guys doing? But that's
so crazy. Yeah. Let's we'll talk about that here in a second, but I wanted to ask you another question. So in regards to like your family, did your family know at the time that you were in this? Like, what were their thoughts on it? Like, are you close with your family or with your mom and stuff? Like, what was the thoughts like? Yeah. What was the conversation like?
Yeah. My family is amazing. They're just they just support me in whatever I do, which has some pros and has some cons to it because whatever I decided to do, they were just so supportive of it. When I was in the world and partying, they were so supportive of it. They let me throw crazy parties at my house.
Really?
Yeah.
Those parents.
Yeah. They let me throw the craziest parties at my house. And I look back, I'm like, why did you guys let me do that? But they love me so much and they just wanted to support me in whatever I chose, So when I started getting into New Age, it was a little different for them, but then they saw how serious I was about it, especially because my journey at the yoga studio really just like progressed and I was about to become the manager there. So they knew like, wow, okay, she's in this, she's a part of this. And, it's crazy to think of it now, but we used to have all of these like ceremonies and rituals and I used to bring my family to them. So when it was crazy because they didn't understand that it was darkness. I didn't understand that it was darkness. Yeah. I just thought it was cool and it's intriguing and that's how it gets you. They glamorize it. And so, we were going to all of these rituals, worshiping the moon, worshiping other gods and we didn't understand that it was dark and I was bringing my family to that. So when God revealed the truth to me, I just came forward to my family and I told them everything and I apologized. Like, I was like, I'm so sorry, you guys. Like, I truly, truly, truly apologize. I made my cousins throw out all the crystals that I bought them.
Really?
And
Everything.
Yeah. So it was a journey, but, they were supportive and they understood. But the one that really hurts me, and I think back to it sometimes, I remember, so my mom's a Christian though. So she's a Christian and, but she still like, she knew that she couldn't force Christianity on me.
Got it.
And so she was just, again, didn't really like it, but she was supportive of it. And I remember the day that I told her that I was going to pursue mediumship, she just broke down crying.
Really?
She was like, I don't understand. She's like, I truly don't understand. But she just like broke down crying. She was like, why do you want to do this? And I was like, Mom, because this is God's gift to me. Like, this is what I'm meant to do, because I was so convinced that I was meant to be a medium and connect to the dead and help people heal in that way, but it was dark.
Wow, that's crazy. Let's talk a little bit about that because you mentioned that about, yoga. And maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, we had a gentleman that was here at church, and and he was really into like third eye meditation, and he was into a lot of the like martial arts and stuff like that. And they taught, one of his instructors was really big on like yoga and stuff. And he said that once he started doing yoga and like a lot of meditation and all that, he really started like, you know, kind of dabbling in that. And he said a lot of like things started like manifesting and stuff. This is before he came to church. And like you said, you know, you don't really know that it's bad, you know, and especially, you know, I've seen a lot like on social media, even like you know, celebrities and stuff like that, or shows, they'll go to mediums, they'll go to psychics. Probably, I would say like 95% of Hollywood does yoga. You know, yoga is like so popular. I've been working in Hollywood a lot lately, and there's so many yoga studios over there. It's crazy, you know, so that's really big. But let's expose kind of yoga, because kind of personally, at least for me, from what I know, you know, yoga is not of God. I don't know much about it, but I know that there's a lot of movements. There's a lot of stretch. I don't know if it's called stretches or exercise or whatever, but it mimics a lot of like, you know, Hindu and a lot of gods and a lot of poses and stuff like that. And we'll kind of talk about it. There's even, you know, quote unquote Christian yoga. So kind of what are your thoughts on that? Because when I've seen Christian yoga, I don't know, to me it just doesn't sit well with me, because I'm like, you're still kind of like dabbling in it, like it's kind of scary a little bit. But then some people, I've seen the argument like, well, you know, you can use darkness for light, like that whole thing. But you've been into it, you know about it. Talk to us a little bit about yoga. Talk to us a little about Christian yoga. What are your kind of thoughts on that, or have you seen that?
Yeah, I have slightly heard about Christian yoga. I'm not too sure what their practices are. I haven't looked so far into it to understand like what are they even doing, what are they, you know, just like influencing on Christians, you know, trying to do yoga. But I know that the two don't go together. So I don't necessarily know about Christian yoga. I know about yoga. But so yoga, it seems harmless, right? A lot of people give that argument that it seems harmless. It's just a workout. You're just stretching. Like it's no biggie. But the way that I was taught yoga at the yoga studio was it is a spiritual practice, and the origins are they're Hindu practices. So
I was right.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't have something to do with like Hinduism and like, because you see different gods and the statues and stuff, and I'm like, I've seen yoga poses like that before.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
And, you know, I've even had this debate, I guess you can call it, with like friends that really, really good friends that I had in the New Age. And they're yogis. They've studied this for years.
Is that what they're called? Yogis?
Yeah, yogis.
That's funny. Like Yogi Bear. Okay,
yeah, they're yogis, and they've practiced this for years, and they just don't want to see it. They don't want to believe that it's wrong. But then also, too, you know, like I had a friend who we kind of had this very cordial debate, because at the end of the day we're still friends, and even though we have different beliefs now, hey, I still love you, you know. So she's studied yoga for years. I believe she went to Bali to study yoga. Wow. And you know, not to touch much on her, but like she was an ex-witch, and then she felt like she saw the light and she came to Jesus. But we had like a very cordial debate. She was like, you know what, I honor that you're learning about that, but I have to disagree because I've learned about it. So it's just a debate, you know, but when you do the research, it's like it's there that at the end of the day, you know, we can't serve two masters. If we're going to surrender our life to Jesus, then we're going to surrender our life to Jesus, and there's no like, hey, I'm going to surrender my life to Jesus, but I'm going to dabble and worship these Hindu gods also, you know. And so when you're doing yoga, that's exactly what you're doing. These poses is you're bowing down and you're worshiping Hindu gods, their deities. So you're in these poses, right? And you're not only you're not only doing these poses to look like the deity, but you're in these poses and you're meditating on it to embrace and embody everything that deity stood for. And it's another god. So, which, you know, it's very controversial, but that's the truth. And then there's also like this mythical story of Warrior 1, Warrior 2, Warrior 3, which are like some, you know, important poses in yoga. And pretty much it's about this god, this lord, his name was Shiva. And he married this girl. Her name was Sati, and then the dad just didn't like it. The dad didn't honor their marriage. He didn't like it, and so what ended up happening, like long story short, was Sati, the daughter, went to like this party that they were throwing, and the dad was just like, you know, saying all these negative stuff to her. So like she like killed herself there. Wow. And then Shiva, he like pretty much like yanked off a piece of his hair and then like manifested a demon, and the demon went and then like killed the father. Wow. So that's what Warrior 1, Warrior 2, Warrior 3 stands for, is reenactments of that murder scene.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
most people like like I said, with yoga, like, you know, you go to Hollywood, it's like this cute thing, like everyone's doing, you know, it's all over social media, you know, all that. But it's just like, but there's a real past to it, and it's dark. It's crazy. And I feel like that happens so much, whether it's in Hollywood, social media, like our culture, our generation. It's like the enemy will use things and he'll make it cool, he'll make it cute, he'll make it like trendy or whatever, but there's like dark stuff behind it. It is so crazy. It's so crazy. Thank you for exposing that, because like I said, you know, I've seen, you know, churches like, you know, Christian yoga and stuff like that. It just never really sat well with me, you know, and I don't know their hearts. I know that, you know, maybe they're trying to use it as like an outlet to reach people and stuff, but I'm like, you probably, maybe can you try doing it another way, you know, that doesn't involve with that, because it's like for yourself, and I feel like it always goes back to, you know, scripture and stuff. For you, it's like, you know, coming from that lifestyle, I don't think you could do that, you know, Christian yoga and be okay with your spirit, because you know the reality, you know the stuff you've been through and stuff. So for me, whenever it comes to anything with ministry or Christians, I really feel like we got to be careful sometimes, because there's scripture that says, you know, don't do anything to cause your brother to stumble, you know, or your sister in this case. So it's like, for you, let's say our church had a Christian yoga program and you came from that lifestyle, it probably wouldn't sit well with you. Like, hey, I know the real stuff behind this, and you guys are like, you know what I mean? It's not like, and it's not the other way around where it's like speaking in tongues. We'll get into it in a second here, where it's like, this is biblical, and the enemies turn this around. In the other sense with yoga, that is, let's call it satanic, you know, demonic, evil, whatever, and now Christians are trying to change that over. So I think that's key for us to like, and anything part of like, you know, Christianity, whatever the case, is to know from the sides of the table, like, are Christians trying to make bad good? Because the enemy will always try to make good bad,
right?
You know, and that's a given. But the other senses, I think, the things we have to be careful for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of like your journey now to church. So you have this crazy background, you have this like, you know, really like this understanding, and then you get invited to church. Or how did that happen? I think we were on live stream at the time last year. Kind of walk us through that.
Yeah. So pretty much what happened was, again, I was dealing with anxiety and depression, and I was really about to hit like a new level in my New Age journey. I was really making a name for myself in New Age. You know, I was about to become the yoga studio at the yoga studio that I was working at, and it was just so glamorized. You know, like we had classes, and well, you know, they had classes. They was really up and coming, because you know, they were doing ceremonies and just so many dark things, but it was big and it was up and coming, and New Age is so normalized now, and we don't realize how normalized it is. But so I was just dealing with all of this, right? And you know, I had a lot of stuff going on, and I was just still so anxious and so depressed. You know, I was going through all of these ceremonies and healings and all of this, and none of it was working. Like it would.
So as you're going up in the New Age ladder per se, or this yoga and everything, you're still dealing with your stuff.
I was still just like so depressed, so anxious. I was like just bondage to addiction, and I didn't know what to do anymore. Like I couldn't live life anymore, and I was just broken, you know. And so again, we would pray to a God, and here's another thing too, is like in New Age, they believe that they are God. They believe that they have God, you know, they have God-like powers, and that they're God, and that they're the ones who are ushering, you know, this new earth. So it was a lot of stress, because it is a healing process. Like, you're taught in New Age that you're supposed to go through anxiety, you're supposed to go through depression, because you're going to heal all of that. And the only way to heal it is through it. So you have to go through all that stuff. And it's just identifying and saying, okay, I have to go through this. You're coming into agreement with it, and you're allowing it to stay. So I didn't really know like what else to do. And there was just like a point where, you know, I remember too, and I get so like, just thinking about it, I created this altar in my room, like worshiping other gods.
Really?
Yeah, I had just created the altar. I bought everything. I created the altar, had all my tarot cards on there, had like statues on there. And I remember, you know, you're supposed to give these gods offerings. And I offered them a bowl of weed. Like that was what I offered to them.
Wow.
And then I had, you know, smoked it, and literally I was high from that bowl, and I was scrolling through Instagram, and God found me.
Wow.
Yeah. And
as you're like high and everything.
yes, from you know, the offering that had gave these other gods. And
this was last year?
This was last year, September of 2020. Yeah. And so I was crying out. It was like a week of me just crying out to God, you know, not Jesus per se, but God. And I was like, God, please just heal me. Like, let's just do it. I can't handle this anymore. I can't live this way anymore. It's not a way to live, you know? So I was crying out. And actually, so this was like a week time span, right? And then a few days after that, now knowing that it was Holy Spirit, but again, I was still in the occult, I was still a medium, and it was the middle of the night, and I woke up, and I just felt something like pushing me up against my bed, like I couldn't move, and it felt like a healing, and I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but now I understand that it was like Holy Spirit showing up, and just like, it was like my life was about to change forever. Wow. And like I literally couldn't move. Like I couldn't move my head, I couldn't move my arms, and I didn't know what had happened. But I just knew that it was like a switch, what was about to happen. And then so that happened, right? And then a few days after that was it was Labor Day weekend, and I was just going through Instagram, and this spiritual teacher that I used to follow, she was like huge in New Age, and I really resonated with her teachings, and she kind of fell off for a bit, and then I saw her come back, and she posted a picture, and she was talking about Jesus, and I was like, that's interesting. I was like, because nobody in New Age really glorifies Jesus. So I went to her page, and again, when I was in New Age, I would get so triggered by the name of Jesus. I would get triggered. Really? I used to think Christians were so lost. I was like, these people are so weird. They're just like gonna surrender their life, and but I used to get triggered by that name, so I was like, what?
We're not the ones like sacrificing weed bowls to
know,
God.
Right?
I'm just saying.
I know, right?
Isn't it crazy though, right? Like people judge, and I get it. There's some Christians, they take it to the extremes and stuff, but it's crazy how Christians are judged, but we look at it on the flip side, it's like we're not so different, at the same time. Like it's crazy. But go ahead.
Absolutely. No, it's so true, because we're so brainwashed. We're so deceived, and we're so, like when we're not, like fully surrendered to Jesus, it's like the world really does raise you up, and you get just so easily deceived. But so she deleted all of her old teachings. She deleted everything, and then she had an IGTV video with also an ex-New Ager, and they were talking about it, and they were exposing everything, and she renounced everything, and she apologized publicly, and she was like, she was at like a conference, like a New Age conference. There was like speakers, that were on there, because they're all about like law of attraction and manifestation and creating the life of your dreams, So they were at this conference, and she said that she was like coming back, and she was about to walk into the conference, and she saw the speaker, and she saw all of the people sitting there, and that she just saw all of their souls being like sucked out. And that she heard God audibly tell her, leave and don't look back. Wow. And I was like, oh my gosh. And as I was watching this, my spirit was waking up, and it was just one of those things where like I didn't have to question it. Like I just knew, like, this is truth. And I didn't understand how I knew. I didn't understand what was about to happen. I truly didn't. But I knew that this was the truth, and I knew that my spirit was waking up, and my life was about to change forever. And God encountered me, and he told me like everything that you're doing is dark, and it's satanic, and you need to stop. And I was like,
this is crazy.
Yeah. And I just knew. And then the crazy part is the next morning, this was late at night on Monday night. The next morning I had to go into my job at the yoga studio, and they were planning their 1 year anniversary. And I was in charge of planning it. And they were charging, they were planning this demonic party of like, okay, we're going to have tarot cards here, and we're going to have like channelings here, and we're going to have mediumship readings here, and like yoga class here. And I was like, I can't do this. I was like, Lord, like you've awakened my soul, and I can't do this anymore. And so this was on Monday night, and by Thursday, I had to tell them like I can't do this anymore. Like I am sorry, I'm choosing Christianity, and I'm choosing Jesus.
You told them that when you left? Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because most people, you could have just been like, hey, I found something else or whatever, but like that's crazy that you actually were like bold enough to say that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what did they say? What was their response?
They were hurt. They weren't really, because they were pouring into me, even though it wasn't the good kind of pouring into, but they were doing what they thought was right. And I've said it once, and I'll always say it, that these women are amazing, just beautiful people, and they truly believe that they're doing the right thing. And they truly believe that they're doing God's work.
Yeah. They're just deceived, but they have good hearts. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, my mediumship mentor was really hurt, really hurt. And, so crazy enough, one of the girls actually told me that she was like, Christina, I really feel like you're making a mistake, because I went through the same thing last year where I thought Christianity was the way.
No way.
Yeah.
Let's go find her. Where is she at? Let's go rescue her. Operation Save Her. Let's go.
I know. Seriously.
Wow. So Wow, that's crazy. So she like had this experience, probably the same thing, maybe a little bit different, but then she still got sucked back into it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she confided in her friends, and they were like, "No, like, what are you doing? Like, no, that's not the way. You know, like this is the way. You know." So, and I remember, you know, when I saw that video, I followed the guy that was on the video with the spiritual teacher that I had followed, and he reached out to me, and I told him a little bit about my story, because he saw everything on my Instagram at the time was still New Age, and so he reached out to me, and he was like, you know, you're really, really, really lucky that you got out when you did, because sometimes it's too late for some people, because the demons are just so wrapped around them, and they don't allow them, like, the truth is right in front of them, but, you know, they don't really believe it because they're gonna believe the demons instead. And so just being a channel but let me correct myself, because it's never too late for anyone.
Amen.
You know, but
it's harder. It's definitely harder.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's harder, especially when, you know, years and years, and you've allowed all of these entities and demons to reside in you. It's really hard to understand this truth that's like in front of you. Yeah, and it's not hard, like you said. You know, it's not hard, but it's not hard for God, but it's harder for us. Exactly. Right? We're the only ones that really get in the way. I mean, Jesus speaks a word, and a legion of demons can flee. You know, but it's us, so it is harder. That's crazy. So you're going through this week transformation, and then kind of what pushes you to kind of where we're at now, as far as, I know we had our worship night and stuff like that. So kind of what was the transition there? What happened there? So that happened, and I had to let go, because I started doing research. You know, I started like making sure like this is the right thing to do. So that guy, he gave me a lot of, you know, documentaries, a lot of research to do, and it all lined up, and it was all true, and it was all roots were from like Freemasonry and just you know, the Satanic Church, and that's where a lot of New Age practices originate from. And so it added up, and I was like, you know what, God, I don't know what you have for me, but I'm sacrificing everything that I built without you, because I want you, Jesus. So then I went from, you know, I was like this, I guess you can say, I hate to say the term, but like influencer in New Age, because I had like a podcast. I would make IGTV videos. I was so bold about it and passionate about it, because again, we're seeking truth, and we want to get the truth and just like embrace it and tell everybody, right? Like the gospel. Exactly. So Alyssa, my best friend, we met in 6th grade. It's crazy. We met in 6th grade. We were in the same class that year, and then we kind of separated, but we were friends on social media. And so she was along for the ride through everything, like from when I was a kid to like, you know, when I was in my party and rave scene to like, you know, my New Age scene. And she would watch all my stories, everything that I would talk about. And so she knew everything. And then I started posting all of a sudden, like, hey guys, I'm saved. Like, by the way, I serve Jesus now. So she was like, wait, hold on. Like, what's going on? So she asked me if we can go grab coffee. And we went to go grab coffee with her and her daughter, Olivia. And I explained everything to her. And she was like, wow, like, that is amazing. And so, Alyssa, she comes here to Harvest Time. And so I started to get plugged in with her, you know, because she was like my first point of contact when I came to Christianity. And I started to get plugged in with her, and, you know, she would post about like Brave Daughters, which is a Bible study. And at that time, you know, we were doing live streams. So I know you guys were doing worship nights at Cynthia's house. Yeah. So there was a worship night, and I went to Brave Daughters, and that was amazing. And then I went to worship night. I remember I went to worship night, and this is like my first Christian, like full-on event, like, you know, where there's a worship band playing, and there's a congregation there, and there's a pastor. So I didn't really know what to expect, but, you know, I'm fresh out of New Age, and I'm just so open, and I'm like, okay, God, like, you know, and then, you know, the worship band's going, people are on their knees, screaming, praying, people are speaking in tongues, and then pastor prays over someone, and she just gets laid out in the spirit, and I'm like, what is going on? I was so like, I guess I just had this idea of church where it was almost like very religious, where you go and you sit down, and then, you know, you sing a few songs, and then you hear the service, and then you leave. So when I come to Harvest Time and I see just how on fire you guys are, I'm just like at a loss for words, because my understanding is we did all of that in New Age. Like, why are you guys doing it in Christianity? Like, you were not supposed to be doing this. And so I literally left, because I was like, oh no, I'm leaving before this pastor calls me up there to pray over me. So I like left, and I was like bawling my eyes out in my car, and I was like, God, I don't understand. I was like, this is everything that I left. Like, why am I here? Why am I here? So what specifically, real quick, what was like kind of some specifics like that you saw that like in the worship night compared to that? Yes. So like speaking in
tongues. I think you mentioned the speaking in tongues, right?
That was the huge one, the big one, because in New Age there's something called light language, and that's pretty much they're channeling a higher entity. They're channeling what they believe is an alien, and it sounds a lot like speaking in tongues. From what I remember, I haven't listened to it since I was in New Age, but now that I hear people speaking in tongues, it sounds a lot like speaking in tongues. And so what they're doing is in New Age is they're channeling a higher being, what they believe is an alien, and they're speaking in tongues, and it's supposed to like activate you to your higher self. It's supposed to be like a healing and an activation. And I remember when I would do these activations in New Age, I would just feel like sick after.
Really?
I would just feel really sick. Yeah. And that's a whole nother thing too. I don't know if we have time, but it's what's called a Kundalini awakening, which is the serpent energy.
I've heard of Kundalini before, spirit Kundalini before.
Yeah. So in New Age, they believe that everybody has it. They believe that everybody has it lying dormant, but it's literally, if you look up Kundalini energy, it's the representation of a serpent.
Wow.
It's a serpent energy. And what it does in New Age is it like travels up through all of your chakras to like fully enlighten you. But it's just, you don't awaken your Kundalini. Long story short, So anyways, that was that. And light language and, speaking in tongues was the big one for me, because I was like, all of these people are channeling aliens, so I thought, because that's what I was taught in New Age, and I was like,
and we're outside, they're just gonna come right. This spaceship's just gonna show up outside right now on this worship night.
Exactly. And then another thing too was Arlene grabbed the mic and she was like, I see a vision, and there's all these angels, and they're just saying like, holy, 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 and I was like, what are you guys doing? I was like, stop, no.
That's gotta be so hard, because like you want to leave New Age, you're like, I'm, and it's hard for you to do. You left the yoga, so you're doing all this, and then like this one night, like it's like, I can imagine like how you're saying you're crying, you're probably just like so confused, like what the heck, like where do I run to now? Like if New Age isn't it, if Christianity isn't it, then you know what I mean, like that's crazy. And for us, like it's crazy because I play drums and stuff, so I always say I have the best seat in the house because I can see everybody and stuff, but little do like we know sometimes like in services or wherever, like what people are really going through, or new people that come in, like where they're coming from in their background. So that's crazy. So then what kind of happened after that?
So after that, I ran away from Harvest Time. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I don't understand it. So I actually reached out to one of my friends from high school who was posting that she was going to church. And I was like, hey, what church do you go to? So I started going to this other church in San Dimas for a little bit. But God, when God has a plan for you, he's going to make sure, he, even though he was like pushing me into Harvest Time, and I was like, no, they're weird. And I went to another church. For a few months, I was going to this other church, and then you guys started doing in-person services again. And I was still going to Lifted consistently, which is the boot camp that Antoinette and Chris own. I was still going to Lifted consistently.
Did you just join that like randomly, kind of, or?
Yeah, well, okay, so I was doing yoga every day, right? And then I stopped, and I was like, I was in like the best shape of my life, and I was like, I don't want to gain all this weight back, because I had, with like yoga and everything, I had lost like 60 pounds. So I was like, I don't want to gain all this weight back. So then that first Brave Daughters, I met Antoinette, and then she was like, oh, me and my husband own a boot camp, a Christian boot camp. And I was like, what? So I started going. I got plugged in and I started going.
So you're still going as you're going to this other church and stuff? Still going to camp?
Yes. Yeah, I'm still going to camp. And then so, Antoinette's pouring into me. And then you guys do in-person service again. You start doing in-person service. But I wasn't keeping up with the live stream or anything. And then Carla and Antoinette and Alyssa invited me to go to the in-person, the first one, the in-person service. And so I was like, okay, me thinking that I was going to go just to support them, and just, be a good friend because they invited me, but not knowing that, like, God was going to encounter me there. Wow. But, there was still just deliverance that needed to happen. But something, well, not something, it was, it was God that kept telling me, like, go back. And so I was consistent and I kept going, and just beautiful, beautiful things have happened, and I'm just so honored to be a part of Harvest Time and to be able to serve with you guys and be part of the congregation, because it's truly changed my life and my walk with Jesus.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now for those that don't know, you're serving now, right? You're under Andrea and I, and it's been a blessing to have you on the team. You've been opening now and transitioning and stuff like that. So we call it platform ministry, right? Like you're actually on a platform with a mic. And for people that do that, we don't just let anyone come in. Like we really seek the Lord and say, like, we feel that, is God giving us that peace peace for this person, that person. So, when he highlighted you, like, I really felt that. I know Andrea did as well too. Like, hey, this is someone that, definitely like is ready to be used by God. So it's amazing to see, like, it's only been a year, like you said, when we first opened, like that you've been saved, but it's so crazy to see where you're at today from like the whole movement, all of that, to like getting saved, to like kind of running away a little bit. And it's funny because like, I don't think you do, but you don't even have to feel bad for running away, because we had so many people, that's a lot of their story. A lot of people that have came, whether they came from, Catholicism or even other Christian churches, like they'll come here and they'll see people just like laid out on the floor and getting deliverance during worship. And like worship, we always joke, like goes like 45 minutes to an hour sometimes. And then, pastor gets it there. Like, we always have these other amazing men and women of God too that come in. Like, we have like so many just different aspects of the ministry that's just so different, and it's funny because I think people will sometimes get scared of that, but I think it also makes us who we are and like makes us different. We're not like the other, like we always say, we're not like the other penguins. We're like happy feet. We're not like the other penguins. Like we're so different, but it makes us special. And like I said, I mean, for you, it's been a blessing to have you. For those that don't know, you transition, or you open our service and you transition out of worship, which it's funny because, we kind of, it's one of those things, for people that don't know, opening a service and transitioning out of worship is one of the hardest jobs to do. Because with worship, it's hard, but it's like, you can tap and you can go. With speaking, like if, for me, let's say, I speak sometimes. For me, I can kind of have some notes, I can kind of have some things planned I want to do. But your job, it's like you have no clue what's going to happen in that service. You don't know what's going to happen in worship. And the last like 3 weeks that you've been kind of doing it and stuff, we've had like amazing worship experiences where it's like people are laid out on the floor. And it's funny because I'll be backstage and you'll like look at me and I'll look at him and be like, I don't know if we're ready to transition yet out of worship, or I don't know, but like you're sensitive to what God's doing. So it's so amazing to just see your transition, that you're not only just a Christian now or like a member, but you're actually serving. Like seeing yourself now, do you ever kind of look back at that and think like, wow, like does that ever hit you like, wow, I can't believe I'm here right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of moments that are like, this is so surreal. Like it's so surreal. And it's like, God has definitely done a lot in my life in such a short period of time, but it just goes to show of like your obedience and like fully surrendering to God, and not like, it's hard. It's definitely hard. But at the end of the day, like if you follow the plan that God has for you and the path that God has for you, He's going to take you to places that you could never take yourself in a time period that you could have never accomplished, So it's definitely hard. I definitely look back and, I'm just like in disbelief, because it's just freedom. Like there's really no other way that I can explain it other than just like pure joy and just freedom, because God saved me from so much. And, that's why it's like, I just fully give my life to Him, like no questions asked, because I was just so lost. I was so lost and I was down a really, really, really dark path. And I know that's a lot of people's stories, we're just so lost and we don't know what to do. And like you mentioned, we're all just seeking truth. We're created to worship, but we don't know necessarily what. But when you come to Jesus, and even in the beginning, like if for anyone who's like on the fence or like doesn't know, or like maybe this is the first time you hear of like a true life of like what it's like to truly surrender your life to Jesus, it's like he's gonna be there for you, and He's gonna show up. Like if you seek Him with all of your heart, the Bible says if you seek Him with all your heart, you will find Him. Amen. And so that's what I did. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I just knew that every morning I woke up and I thanked Him, and I talked to Him, and I built relationship with Him, and I just said, God, you guide me. And He's guided me to amazing places. But yeah, I look back and I'm just like, I was so lost. I was so lost and broken, and God just like, He just came in and He intervened, and He was like, nope, you're mine.
That's so good. And it's crazy because like if you think from someone that's like, struggles with like alcohol, they were an alcoholic before they came to Christ, or they were like a drug addict, or even if they just smoked a lot of weed and stuff, or whatever their thing was, for you it's a lot of like the spiritual side. I feel like the enemy, he'll use that sometimes to try to get people to come back. Have you, in this last year that you've been saved, have you felt that? Has the enemy kind of hit you with that, like any doubt or anything like that, or try to get you to go back to that? Like, have you felt any of that warfare?
Not necessarily to fully say like, okay, I want to go back. Don't get me wrong. There's times where like I miss the people and I miss the experiences. I just wish it wasn't dark, because it was awesome. Just like it's like fellowship for like the kingdom of darkness almost, that's really what it is,
Community.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like I miss the people, and just like like I mentioned, it was glamorized, but it was just a deception at the end of the day, so it's like, yes, he can try and the enemy can try and get me to feel like, oh, I miss that, or I want to go back, but at the end of the day, it's like, no, I know the God I serve, I know who I am, and I know whose I am. So it's just he can't really do it. There's been times, though, don't get me wrong, where like there is something that you have to allow God to work through you, because there was feelings of unworthiness, like I'm not worthy of this, because we always talk about that, where it's like our identity in him, where it's like he sees us like so beautiful and just like royalty, and we don't believe it almost. So it's something that you have to really surrender to, and like, no, God says this about me, so I'm going to believe it. But yeah, there's feelings of doubt and unworthiness for sure, like with anything, but yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Man, well, I feel like we exposed them today. That's for sure. Thank you for sharing that. Because, like I said, I mean, I feel like, a lot of people, like, you hear about things, or you'll see, videos and stuff, but it's crazy to actually have someone in ministry and to see where you're at today, because I don't know that old side of you. But to see where you're at today, it's just like, I don't see no bipolar, depressed, addicted to this, that, and the other. Like, I see you like walking in freedom and just being a light, being like a joy to be around. I know so many people love you and embrace you and stuff like that. So I know, like, when they see this podcast, they're going to be like so excited to click on it, like you bring really like a light. So it's so amazing. And then even like, kind of knowing your story, even like your job now, like, what you're doing now, it seems like you have a great job now too. So it's like, it's crazy that God will always take care of you, and he'll honor your obedience, right? Because you said, you like left the studio and it was kind of like hard and stuff, but it seems like you're going into a good path right now. So that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was another thing too, my finances when I was in New Age, I just like, the spirit of poverty was just over me. I was like, couldn't make money. I couldn't keep money. I was just like, it's just so financially unstable. But then when I surrendered my life to Jesus, and including my finances, he just skyrocketed me to this job where, like, the job that I have today, I could not do it without God. Wow. Because it's hard. It is hard. I'm a personal banker, but where he's taken me, and just like how he's gotten me through things, and just like how he's restored everything in my life, including my finances, is just so beautiful, because he's going to work in every corner of your life.
Amen. And so amazing, because like I said, you're just in your first year. I mean, I can't even wait to see where you're going to be in like the next 5 years, even the next 2 years. Like, it's so crazy how God is like, when you fully surrender, what he can do. I've always said this, and we'll end with this. It's like, there's people that have been in church for years, like 15 years, 20 years, because maybe their hearts, or with religion and whatever the case is, sometimes they might only grow this much. In those 15 years, it looks huge, but they only grow this much. And it's so amazing when I love God that it's just like, he'll use anybody and everybody as long as they're willing. You've been here for this much, but your spiritual walk is like this high. You know what I mean? Like, it's so amazing to see that, and it's such a blessing. So thank you, Cristina, for coming on. I don't know what I said. I think I said Bristina. Get tongue twisted sometimes, but thank you, Cristina, for coming on. Yes. And I got to make sure it's correct, because it's C-R. No, there's no H in your name.
No H, just
I think the first time I accidentally spelled it wrong. So we'll make sure it's right in the title. But but thank you so much for coming on, honestly. And just, again, this is not to glorify anything or anything. It's literally just to expose the enemy and to let people know, like, this is not the way to go. If you're involved in that stuff, let it go. Yeah. There's such a better path to take. Such a better path to take. So thank you, Cristina. We appreciate you so much. For those that are watching, again, thank you guys for tuning in. We encourage you guys, like, comment, subscribe, share this video. Maybe you guys know somebody that's involved in that, or maybe they're dabbling into that, or whatever the case is. Share this video with somebody, send it to them, text it to them, share it on social media. We believe God's going to use this video and set so many people free. So we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks again, Cristina. Appreciate you.